We are going to go and talk some college sports, though, aren't we?
Yes, let's do that.
All right, let's do that. We are thrilled to be joined on the show by Senior Associate Athletic Director for Temple University, Larry Dougherty. Larry, how you holding up these days, sir?
Just like everyone else there, guys, just hanging out at home and trying to do the best we can here remotely. So, but I appreciate you having me on.
All right.
Well, we
Larry,
appreciate the time.
Yeah, Larry, before we get to what's going on now, my understanding is when all this broke, you weren't in Philadelphia. What was that first week and a half like for you?
Really interesting. I was with the men's basketball team. That's one of the sports I directly cover as a communication specialist. And I remember talking to Aaron McKee the day before the NBA shut down. And there was a lot of buzz going with this virus and its impact. And could we shut down the conference tournament? Are there going to be fans, no fans in the arena? I said, there's no way they're going to shut down, this tournament or March Madness. There's just no way. I mean, there's too much money at stake. It's just, it didn't seem like the impact of this virus at that moment was where we are today. No one could have imagined that, I guess. But we were all kind of, in silos. We were just focused on this tournament. And so I'm like, I just can't see it. And I've been doing this for 30 years. I just couldn't see a complete shutdown of all of sports in the blink of an eye. And then when the NBA, we did make a decision before the NBA to not have fans at our arena. I think that's one of the decisions we made that day of the NBA. When the NBA shut down, it was we all knew that it was just a matter of hours before we were following suit, and then the NCAA was going to make a decision to not only suspend the March Madness, but also suspend all of the spring sports seasons and basically college sports for the 2019-20 academic year. So it was surreal, to be honest. That's how to describe it. A surreal moment, and a surreal week. We were doing lots of conference calls because all of our athletic administration wasn't at the tournament. Our athletic director got all of our senior staff on conference calls and trying to decide how are we messaging, what are we telling our student athletes, what are we telling our fans, during this time of crisis. So it was very surreal.
As great a school as Temple is in sports, it's an academic institution, and it involves young students. So what is it like? People I don't think aren't appreciating how important it is for the university to make sure that the students are safe and that there's a uniformity to what's going on at the schools. What is it like behind the scenes for you to deal with making sure that the students are safe?
Well, in my role, it's merely on the senior staff, but also in communications and more external and internal. But, just being part of a team to try to say, but you're exactly right. Safety of students is the most important thing a university does. There's nothing, that's 1A, 2, that's what we do. So we were listening and taking the lead of our university administration, our president, to see what we were doing with our students, with our classrooms, with our dormitories. And all of this was transpiring, through emails and through exchanges while we were traveling back from Texas. So we wanted to make sure that our young men that were with us on the basketball court and basketball team knew what they were facing when they got off that plane and when we were going, or is there a classroom? How long before they have to go home, and then didn't stop there. It's like, okay, we have like 500 student athletes. So we want to make sure that where were they all? We have administrators for each sports teams. I oversee as a varsity sport administrator, men's crew, women's rowing, and women's soccer. We want to make sure that where are our students, our student athletes? Are they in dormitory life? Are they in off-campus housing? How are we getting them, or how are they getting themselves back home? And we have a lot of international student athletes too. And the university was doing the exact same thing, trying to make sure that this transition to online remote learning went smoothly. Because even the students had the transition, so did the professors, because they haven't been doing that either. It really was, there were so many variables that went through such a fluid situation because, you had no preparation for what was going to transpire over those days and weeks, and still now I think we're in week 9 of being remote. Thankfully, our student athletes had a great transition into our classrooms. We have a great academic support team for our student athletes, and I think our university does as well, but we really give them all the resources to succeed. And our teams just got through their semester and did a really tremendous job in the classroom. And we had our student athletes graduate. Unfortunately, like all the rest of the country, they didn't graduate, these seniors, the way they normally would, with cap and gowns and walking through a commencement exercise. But hopefully we do that sometime in the not too distant future.
Obviously, the academics have been a challenge to work out. I can only imagine the logistics from the athletic side with the coaches. How are you guys able to work with them and the coaches to keep the players engaged and ready in this time of separation?
Well, the one thing is I think everyone in the world, or at least in our country, I guess there's other platforms. I mean, it seems like we all got really up to speed on what Zoom is. I mean, I know there's other platforms. We use Zoom at Temple. I had not used Zoom before this started, and now I'm pretty fluent in it. It seems like Zoom has had about 4 upgrades since in the last 9 weeks, but it's amazing how we're able to do that. I mean, I just got off an all-staff Zoom call that we have every Friday, basically to close the week out and thank our staff for really just keeping their focus and trying to keep working through this. And we've all gotten up to speed with these Zoom, and our student athletes and our coaches have been using Zoom to keep in touch. I know our women's soccer team, for instance, goes through some exercises on film because we can't obviously see them to work them out, but to just try to keep their mind focused. We have a great strength and conditioning team that is in place that is really working with our student athletes to find ways that they can stay strong and keep their athletic skills fine-tuned while being remote. It's really it's tough. I mean, as you've probably seen around the country, the stories of professional athletes trying to stay in shape and trying to keep ready for when their seasons resume. It's not an easy task.
As somebody with a history in communications and sports information, one of the things that we're seeing is teams and schools struggling with a uniform message. And I think part of it is because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. How does somebody in your position deal with things like that? Like, for example, Lincoln Riley said that it was ridiculous that the SEC was planning or trying to open on June 1st. What is the message that you guys stay on, and do you coordinate with the rest of the conference or the rest of the NCAA?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, because we are trying to keep our student athletes informed. We started up a newsletter that we send out weekly. We started up the second week of being remote, just to give out information and also give out news stories that have good impact on Temple. We've been promoting the positives of our student athlete success, but also to give them information when we have it in a timely fashion. I think the most trying part of this is that we have no end date. There's always been like, okay, we're going to be back from this crisis in this time. There's no end date to this. I mean, we don't know when Philadelphia is going to go yellow, let alone go green. So that's something that's frustrating for everybody, and I think it's frustrating around the country when you see other states that aren't impacted the way it seems like the Philadelphia, Jersey, and New York have been. And we haven't been to the extremes of Jersey and New York, but Philadelphia is one of the, and Pennsylvania is one of the top impacted states in the country. So, we're just trying to say that we're doing the best we can. We're all moving forward in a direction to say we want to return to school first. We want to see if our school is able to open in the fall, and we are moving forward in that direction. I know the university officials are moving in that direction. We want to have a normal, traditional on-campus experience for our students in the fall. And we want to be able to reopen athletics too. And we normally traditionally would open right around the start of August, with football camp and with soccer and volleyball and field hockey, and cross country comes back. So we have a lot of student athletes coming back. And so we're still all focused and driven on saying we're going to return to that without knowing all the answers to how we're going to do that. But I know that our athletic director, Dr. Kraft, is in touch with the university, and the university is in touch with the healthcare officials in the state and the city, and we're following their lead and how we can safely get our students back on campus and our students back on the playing field. And I think there's still a lot of questions on how to do that effectively. And we've looked into how do we train them in terms of strength and conditioning. Do we maybe we'll take some of our weight equipment and bring it outside because it's a safer environment maybe than indoors. Things like that to say, how can we be proactive in saying what can help our student athletes be safer?
You do a lot, obviously, from the communications and public relations perspective. I'm sure it's been challenging. The NFL decided to go forward with their draft. The NBA has sort of delayed things and put an extended indefinitely deadline on prospects preparing. How has that been for you, trying to help these players that are moving to the next level make those decisions in this uncertain process?
Yeah, I think the one thing on that is we had some of our football players drafted. We have Quentin Rose and Nate Pierre-Louis on our basketball team that are hopeful to be drafted. At a certain point there, their coaches will obviously be there to support them. They'll have agents that are there to work with them as well. And they're also obviously trying to keep their skill level up to speed as they're trying to get themselves in shape, because if they don't get drafted, they want to try to latch on as a free agent. So we try to give them as much support and guidance as we can. And that's kind of what we would be doing if we were in a normal environment as well.
Larry, before we let you go, I noticed on your Twitter account that you seem to be doing stuff that a lot of parents are doing with their kids now, which is watching old sports. I saw that you were watching with your son an old boxing match. What has it been like to at least take advantage of this opportunity to kind of give your kid a history of the things you grew up with and to kind of see it through his eyes?
That's a great point. I mean, yeah, I have been. I mean, we watched. I think I think ESPN was running some old Ali Frazier fights, and I tried to educate my son Connor to say, let's watch this, let's tape this, and then we went back on YouTube and watched even some more fights that weren't on there, and they're all accessible. And that's the era that I grew up in boxing, and it was a special time. And obviously everyone in Philadelphia, if they grew up then, Joe Frazier was a hero. He was someone that was idolized. So I wanted to show him that that's what boxing was like in its glory days. We've also done the same thing and gone back and tried to watch some old basketball games. Temple Athletics right now has Cherry and White Classics. If you Google that or look it up on YouTube. We've been rerunning with Kevin Kopp, who oversees our video production area. We've been rerunning classics in football, men's basketball, women's basketball, all of our sports, like cross-country championships. Every Friday night, we've gone through our first season, we're kind of saying, of like 8 weeks of that. And now we took a week off, and we're going to have another, I think we're about 12 weeks of athletic events that we're going to run directly on YouTube, debut them on a Friday night. And it's gotten a lot of engagement with our fans, just to go back. And I think our next game is going to be Temple St. Bonaventure. It's the game that Coach Chaney was suspended from back in 1994, I believe, after the incident with UMass.
That's UMass. I remember that. I grew up a Temple fan with my dad. I always joke with Jeff. My dad and we had recorded the 1987 Temple, North Carolina game that they played at the convention center in Atlantic City, and just used to replay that one all the time with the Mark Macon team. So I enjoy those classics.
Yeah, that's Aaron McKee playing in a highlight role in that game, and Aaron's our coach now, so we get a chance to have our fans kind of go back and see. I would think a lot of our fans totally recall Aaron in his glory days at Temple. A lot of fans that are listening here recall Aaron in his glory days with the Sixers in their last finals run. But, seeing Aaron, Eddie Jones, Rick Brunson, Derek McTee, Karstarfin, there was a lot of great names that went through that era And we just happened to stumble across that game and say that'd be a nice one because it highlights that era and it highlights Coach McKee. But we're doing a lot of that stuff. And again, it really is a weird time right now to say that we have really no sports. I mean, I see that NASCAR starts up with live sporting this weekend in Darlington. So I'm not sure there's many of the Philadelphia fan base for NASCAR, but it's something that's live professional sports. And I'm really rooting for them to succeed here because I think everyone's looking at professional sports leagues, how they get back and up and running. And are they going to run with fans? Are they going to run without fans? Are they going to social distance? That's where a lot of the questions are right now in the sports world as we move forward. Okay, we bring them back. Do we bring back with fans? If we don't, what's the percentage of fans that can be in a facility in terms of social distancing and being safe? So those are the questions we're looking into too, and we're trying to follow the lead, since we play in a professional facility at Lincoln Financial Field in football, follow the lead with the Eagles and how are they going to do this? If we can bring fans back, what's their capacity they're going to go with? So there's time for those questions, but we're looking into them right now because we want to be as prepared as we can if we're going to open our doors to our fan base to make sure they're safe.
Well, as we start to get some answers to those questions, we look forward to maybe talking to you again as things go forward. Wish you the best of luck trying to put everything in place to help these student athletes, A, get their education, B, figure out how to keep chasing their athletic dreams.
And Larry, so for people that are interested, and there's a lot of people obviously in this area that are interested in the cherry and the white, so where can we watch these old school games?
Well, directly on YouTube, and I think if you just search YouTube for Cherry and White Classics, you can find that. But we also have Al Sports or Temple Athletics has a YouTube page that you can just do the Google search there, and they'll be pushed out on that way as well. But Friday night, I believe 7 o'clock will be the games. This tonight is not. We're off this week because this week, all week, we've been running on social media our Stella Awards from Stella the Owl, which honors all of our student athletes. Tonight we'll be announcing our male and female student athletes of the year on our social media accounts. So
there you go, Jeff. You still can have plans tonight, even though they're not showing the game. It's all good.
There you go.
Larry, thanks so much for your time, and stay safe, and thanks for what you're doing trying to keep things moving there at Temple.
Well, I appreciate you guys. All right, you have a great weekend and stay safe too, okay?
You have a great one. Thank you.